Hey everyone, welcome back to the Layback podcast. Today we have our first two-time guest,
No, I was
recurring guest.
wondering about that.
Yeah, you're number one. I guess
Right
number
on.
two. I don't know the right way to phrase that to make it sound more fun. Or
Yeah.
maybe this is a new guest because as far as I'm concerned, we have Jesus Cristo here. Or Tarzan, I guess
Yeah.
as you're affectionately
Occasionally
known
that's
now.
yeah. The
But we have
Dominican
Miller Hogan joining the pod. He is the newest member officially of the 2024-2025 roster for the Gigantes de Carolina in the Puerto Rican Winter League, or the Roberto Clemente League as it's known now. But Miller just made his first appearance back in a game 10 months post-op. So crushed his return, had TJ hybrid reconstruction. So now that's gotten popularized like crazy, getting it called like Tommy John 3 or something like that. But
Yeah.
Miller's surgeon down in Puerto Rico did just the same thing, and he's back after 10 months pitching in the Puerto Rican big leagues.
Yeah.
So we just want to check in with him, understand how rehab went for him, and what it felt like to toe the rubber again. So Miller, I'm ecstatic to have you back. I guess we can start with how does it feel to get back on the mound? Then we'll step back, run the timeline, and then finish with the game talk.
All right. So yeah, I mean, biggest thing was it was awesome to just be excited about pitching again. The biggest thing with the rehab process is like every day is so technical. And I think Ian Seymour kind of talked about that a lot. Like you get in this perspective of like it's so methodical, it's so rigid. Every day has such like an objective, number of throws, intensity, whatever. Like it's so different than when the ball is in your hand and you got to get somebody out, just from like how it feels from like an emotional perspective. Like there's just so much more energy drawn up when the lights come on, of course, like as you would expect. And that was something that I really missed. And it just felt awesome to have that going on again more than anything. It's just a feeling I'd been longing for and hadn't had in a while.
Tickle the competitive drive.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you felt it in new places.
Yeah, and it was rusty for sure. Like you can't expect to have it the first time you step on the mound, but physically felt really good. It was great to get moving that fast again and just kind of be back where I want to be was is more so than anything.
And now it's probably pretty exciting for you that you got through the first game. Were the stats perfect? No, by all means they weren't.
Yeah,
But whatever, you returned. Now
yeah,
I'm sure it feels good that you can kind of shift the focus a little bit to game planning or getting on
yeah.
the same page with your catcher or your coaches to figure out how to pitch to different guys. Because I know you even said you went out there and it wasn't exactly the game that you would have loved to throw. Now I'm
Hmm.
getting ahead. I said I wanted to go through the
Yeah.
timeline, but yeah, so I guess we'll get into this. You feel free to respond to that, and then I'll pull us back.
No, I mean 100%. And my manager down here, Edwards Guzman, he's the man. Like I played for him last year, and he's just he loves the game. Big league career. He's been a GM down here before, but just loves coaching. And he came out to the mound, and so obviously I played for him last year. I threw really well, and it didn't work out. Obviously, as everybody wanted it to. But first thing he said when he came up and took the ball from me, like I went to hand it to him, and he kind of like stood in front of me and stopped me, and just like, man, I'm so happy to just have you on the mound again. We're so glad to have you back. I'm glad this went well, even though statistically maybe it didn't, but like physically felt good, stuff was good, and he's like, it's just great to see you out here again. And that moment, it was kind of like a real weight off the shoulders of like, yeah, I made it. Everything is intact. Nothing exploded. We're physically feeling good. Everything's right where it needs to be. Be a little patient. It's not even been a year. Can't expect to roll right into what I was doing beforehand. So that's the biggest thing. Just like a weight off the shoulders. And like you said, now we can kind of be a baseball player again instead
Right.
of trying to just hold everything together.
Yeah, now we go. I do
Hmm.
love I love that you can say now we can be a baseball player again. You mentioned Ian Seymour already. It was funny for me to hear whatever. It was like his first or second outing back, and he got a ball, just a ground ball to first
See,
base.
I did have that up on him.
Yeah,
I fielded a bunt last night
and you
flawlessly,
covered
and I
first
covered
base.
first. So, Ian, get your shit together, man. I don't know if
That's
I'm allowed to
right. Yeah,
swear
yeah.
on here,
We'll
but
talk some shit to Ian. Hopefully he hears this, or at least I can
yeah,
send this clip to him. But yeah, I thought that was hilarious to hear from Ian. He gets a cheap grounder to first,
yeah,
or just doesn't run over to first base.
I did in his defense, I guess, but I did walk the first two guys that I had at the plate after I gave up my first base runner. So kind of forgot how to pitch with the guys on base. But in my defense, I had to go straight from live BPs into the game, where like usually if you're in a facility or a affiliate environment, you're gonna have 3 innings of live BPs and you're gonna have like 3 scrimmage games, and then you're gonna go to rookie ball and make your way up. I went live BPs right into the ring of fire. So
Yeah, so I guess where you screwed up was letting a guy on base. You just shouldn't have done that.
right, exactly. You can't. That was my game plan. Was that's what I always say to catchers. Was like, Poppy, what do you want to do with runner on second? I was like, let's not let him get to second.
Yeah. Well, we can get into the game planning stuff. This is the stuff
Yeah,
I'm really excited to talk about, but I do want to do at least a few minutes. I say a few, maybe 10,
yeah,
15,
right.
running through, I guess, where we last had you on the podcast, April of
Yeah,
2024, to get to this point, all the work that enabled you to step back on the mound again. So when we last had you on, I encourage people to go check out that episode, but you hadn't yet begun throwing. And I guess that's where things get exciting when you were finally able to pick up the ball again. So I don't know if you want to pick it up from there.
yeah. So I think when we talked, yeah, that would have been like first week of April. So I was, what is that, like 10 weeks out post-op, and around there I was really, it was the first time I was starting to get into like lifting the way that I like to, which is, more plyometric, pretty intense. Like I like to get after it in the weight room. So kind of getting that governor taken off was a big first step for me. And then the way that I kind of went about it from there was I knew I wanted to be throwing mid to late May, but the way that I was looking at it was I wanted throwing. I think we may have talked about this a little bit, like from a philosophical standpoint. I wanted, especially like the early stages of throwing, I wanted to feel like a warm up, like super easy systemically on the body, more so than what time frame starting to throw at week 22 or whatever it was. My idea was hit my flex grip, be 60% or more. I'm pretty sure I was well past it at that point.
Setting
Six.
PRs at that point.
All right. Chronologically, stay focused. We're gonna get off on too many tangents. So yeah, I wanted to be at the threshold that you, Daryl, and I had kind of laid out for just baseline strength to throw.
Mhm.
But also I wanted to hit like a full 4 week, like busting ass lifting program to where it felt like I was getting after it in a traditional off season level of intensity. So that way I knew that like my nervous system and stability everywhere else was in a position that I was effectively from a strength standpoint where I was before surgery. And so like that was my big checklist. And that happened, yeah, right around like the third week of May. I think I hit like my goal was to get in the ballpark of like a 3 times body weight deadlift. And I hit that like that third week of May, about 4 months after surgery. And so after that, that's when we started throwing and then went pretty conservative. I think we followed more of the, what would you call it? Not the recon, the repair
Mhm.
protocol for throwing pace, because, that's more of a 9 month, generally seeing a 9 month recovery. And so that put us
Right.
in a good tempo, essentially building up, and did
Can I
that for,
interject something
yeah,
real
yeah, yeah,
quick there,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Miller? I think it's probably worth noting that all of this, everything you were doing was with the intention of getting back to winter ball, correct?
Yeah, I tried to when I got home and started sitting down with my physical therapist and my trainers and stuff. I was like, 10-month mark is November 18th. I want to be game ready at that day. And so we kind of backlogged everything from there. And yeah, and so like that timeline worked out and tried to go find as many different throwing programs and schedules. I think was more so the program was just kind of like the timing. When people are actually hitting high intensity, when are they deloading? A lot of programs, especially in the affiliate sphere, which like that's kind of maybe something we could get into is like the difference of doing this in an affiliate environment
Hmm.
versus not. The affiliate spheres a lot of times just because there's no rush generally, like they treat it as a 12 to 14 month recovery. So like they're never really looking to speed things up. That's just a job security benefit. A lot of times they'll take like a whole month deload around, I think around the 10-month mark. It's like they'll build up to bullpens, get up to like 100% speed, and then shut down and build back up before facing hitters, which I like. I'm a big believer in like the periodization, build up, deload and rebuild, like to let the body recover. But my timeline obviously couldn't really afford to give up a whole month. So what we did is we took November 18th. I wanted to be 100% throw multiple innings, like last live BP essentially. And I think we hit that almost to the day. But so I backlogged that of like, how long would it take me to build up from a shutdown to be ready on November 18th? And so essentially we did that around 10 weeks. So I backlogged 10 weeks and was like, okay, well, that's the second week of August. Okay, so let's take the last 7 to 10 days of August and we'll call that our shutdown period to get that break, but not lose a whole month. Just let the system relax. I took a vacation, like get away from the monotony a little bit. Because at that point, we would have been 7 months into it. So kind of decompression week, not fully stopped throwing, but like probably took 5 or 6 days off of throwing, a couple days really light, and then started the build up back into it. But that meant what August 21st, I could check the dates on what it was specifically. But like that meant August 21st, I wanted to be throwing 100% intensity, like pushing myself as hard as I could, making the arm go as fast as possible, like
Hmm.
really feeling like I was throwing unrestricted was the goal.
Right.
And so that was what August is the 8th. So that was 7 months essentially was my goal. Like I want not volume, like that first build up phase was purely intensity, obviously enough volume
Right.
to continue to progress, but like the focus was always a velocity threshold on the high end, like hit a number and then dial back and cruise for a little bit of velo. Right. So that was our philosophy going into it was, yeah, like build up. If my goal that day was 80, build up as you would to play catch or whatever, slowly progression, intensity, hit 80. If I had 80 throws that day, maybe try and hit 80 or be like 78 2. So you're averaging like 80 for 5 or 6 throws, nothing major, just enough
Yep.
to like, hey, arm, we can go this fast. It's okay. And then finish with 15 throws around the 75 mark. So it's fluid, it's easy, it feels good, it's not taxing, it's not stressful.
Right, because
Anyway,
chasing velo and volume at the same time
is
a
yeah,
non-starter in
great way to go under the knife, man. Like
yeah. So sorry, I wanted to
no,
throw
you're
that in
good.
there.
You're good. Yeah, chase 2 rabbits, catch none, man. Like it's absolutely you gotta have a goal one at a time. That's why it's so important to kind of look to be able to zoom out, see your overall timeline, and be like, okay, I've laid down these pillars, these check marks that I need to hit. And then now I can just, today we make 10 throws at 80 miles an hour. Next week, we're going to do 12 throws at 84. Just makes it easy, takes the guesswork out of it. And that was the overall thought process for that first 7 months was acute stress, right? Like that's the big difference. The argument's always, okay, what blows up arms, chronic versus acute? Is it one pitch at 100 miles an hour, or is it a bunch of shitty throws at 92? None of them, all of them are stressed. But talking to my doctor, talking to you, talking to Daryl, and it's how I approach my strength and conditioning as well. Is I like to get really high acute stress in one day and then give myself longer periods of rest. It's
Mm.
kind of more, if you want to condense it, like a powerlifting or Olympic weightlifting style. Like those guys work out for like 3 hours, but they might do 10 sets of two over 90 minutes because they're trying to output force. They want maximum force and speed and power output, and that requires recovery, right? Like if it's
Of
like
course.
you go, sure, you can go jog a mile, but or you can't sprint a mile, but you could sprint a mile worth of sprints and get volume with intensity, but it's going to take you, it might take you all day.
Right.
And so that's how we looked at it was, all right, so these first 7 months, if I want to be able to throw 100%, but I'm not necessarily worried about throwing 100% for 3 innings at 7 months, of course. Well, let's twice a week have quote unquote higher intensity days, one like 85% and one 100% of like our velocity goal for that week, not intensity, obviously. And we rinse and repeat for 7 months. And it went smoothly, as smooth as it could. You know, I had a couple hiccups in there, but it was more strength and conditioning related, pushing a little too hard on that end.
Right. The
Um,
3x body weight deadlift, the
yeah,
trying to beat position players in sprints,
I
all
did.
that kind of stuff.
There was like right at the end of that August training cycle, I was making it. I joke about it now, but I worked so hard that I did literally bust my ass because I pulled my glute like mid-August doing a reverse lunge. And so that was pretty funny. I bust my ass, that's for sure. Like I can say it
Congrats on
literally.
that.
Thank you.
That's a good title to have.
Yeah, I can say it
The
literally.
guy
So
who literally busted his ass.
yeah. But I mean, I guess that's as broadly as I can say what we were doing. You're gonna have to maybe hit a paywall or something for the details in there.
Yeah, that's your personal OnlyFans where you just go over your recovery process.
Yeah, I mean, I took my notes, man. I got a notebook in here that's probably like I don't know, $50. I'll take the lock off of it and you can read it. I need to monetize that or something, you know.
Yeah, or we'll get you a Patreon page or something like that where you can
Yeah, there you go.
run through it all.
Something like that. Yeah.
Or just legit publish it and you can have the book on rehab at one point.
Yeah, I don't know if my chicken scratch is ready for publishing. We'll see.
Hey, there's people supposedly with similar hair that have written the gospel and dictated life
Yeah.
for thousands and thousands of years. So you might be on the same path.
Yeah, that might be a stretch to put my little surgical recovery into metaphysical reality, but I appreciate you throwing me in that ballpark.
Yeah, no problem. Hey, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to gas you up. Got to be
Yeah,
here for the
right on.
mentals too, not just the
Yeah,
physical.
right on.
I guess let's hop into that now. Super late stage rehab. You're starting to face guys. I know we talked a lot about the velo gain, how hard you pushed
Mm,
yourself. Then when you started trying to build volume, was it difficult for you to kind of like maintain the training intensity when it switched from you needed to get up to hit 92 or 93
hmm
on a given day for 5 throws to then turn it into, well, now I need to sustain this for
Yeah,
30 something pitches, 40 something pitches. I mean, that's really tough when you're doing it to a net or you're doing it to some high school kid that
yeah,
you're beating up.
yeah. I mean, the you nailed the biggest issue. Like, I guess we said we could talk about doing like the affiliate sphere versus the
Yeah.
independent sphere. That was what I struggled with the most was being the only guy in the gym. That environment aspect is so influential to the energy that you're bringing in every day. Like there's just, you can, and I mean, that's where the discipline, conviction, and all that stuff comes into play of like, when it doesn't feel good, you just got to find a way to get through it. But the biggest difference was the facility that I train and work at. Obviously, we have a bunch of high level college guys. And so they were in town for the summer until like mid August. And there was a just stark contrast in how my body felt and how I recovered, the power output I had over those weeks that they were in town, just because it's more fun. Like you're around more like-minded individuals, and You get to talk a little shit, and it's just more enjoyable. Like you look forward to it a little more, and I think, like from a hormonal level, like when you're around a bunch of testosterone, your testosterone's higher. Like that's an observed phenomenon. So like that was a huge letdown once all those guys got out of there. And luckily for me, it lined up where I was trying to peak in that mid-August
Hmm.
time frame. So like it definitely worked in my favor, at least to that point. But I noticed like August 21st, I think that might be off. Somewhere around there was my last max effort throw day. And that was right at 7 months. I had shuffled 94 and was up to 90 off the mound, which are like, those are numbers that if I were to hit those indoors in tennis shoes pre-op, like that's about as high as I've ever been. I think the hardest I've ever thrown indoors off a mound was like 90, 93. But that was also like reaching back, like velocity day. Like that's not something I would ever
The
pitch at.
velo slap kind of day.
Yeah. So like I pitch indoors at like 88, 91. And so I felt like in 7 months, I was roughly back there, which was awesome. Felt great, recovered super well, still had plenty of mechanical things that I needed to work through. But like from a physical output standpoint, I felt like, okay, I have my ceiling is roughly where I need it to be to continue to be ready. And then so all the college guys left. I took my little decompression week and came back and like physically felt pretty good, but I could tell that like the next 8 weeks was going to be tough just because now it's like you said, it's a little less like volume. Obviously, everybody wants to go chase a number. Like volume's not the sexy, exciting part of the process, but it's arguably just as important, if not more. Like your floor is gonna be what keeps you healthy more so than your top end. Like just the level of energy in the building was obviously you take 25 college kids out of the building, it drops a little bit. And so I struggled quite a bit. I wouldn't say struggled, but that like it was far more difficult getting up every day and like trying to find that energy some way or another in that process because yeah, it's like, well, now these bullpen sessions go from constant progression into a peak, feel good for a couple throws, and you're out of there in 10 minutes. Like once you hit the mound to now, okay, I have to make 40 throws and they all have to be above 80, right? So like we're going to get tired. We're going to have to take breaks to make sure we're not over fatiguing, but we're still able to get that stimulus in. And so the workouts got longer, they got a little slower pace. And yeah, it was that part was far more mentally taxing and
Mm.
emotionally taxing than it was physically. Cause like I was strong, obviously, I was forearm grip, flex pro numbers were far ahead of where they needed to be. Like my physical strength in the weight room, all those numbers were really good. So like it wasn't an issue with capacity. It was just like, all right, we got to make 120 throws today. Like
Right.
we just got to do them. And it's going to take a while and suck it up. Like this is going to take 2.5 hours to get everything in, all the prep work, all the post throw, and like you're just going to have to do it, and then you're going to have to do your lift, and then you got a 4 or 5 hour session at the gym right after that. So
It's almost
they
like you became an endurance athlete.
a little bit, and I hate long distance running for like that reason. Like it just takes forever, man. Like it just feels like I'm so inefficient. I'm like, there's just got to be a better way that I could accomplish this task. Sometimes there's not. Sometimes you
Right.
just gotta one foot in front of the other and get all your steps in.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I think that's probably gets lost on a lot of people. I say that a few things you said gets lost on a lot of people. One, the environment that you rehab in or do your work in 100% influences your ability, mindset, everything, your
Yeah.
psychology, because you are just going to respond to the environment that you were in. So yes, when you rehab at a college or rehab with an affiliate, that's awesome that you have people around you that can support you. Or if you're in a gym where others are going through a similar process, that's sweet. But once you're on your own, you have to find motivation somewhere.
Hmm.
That is incredibly difficult. then it's kind of an extension of that piece when you talk about the volume because you're no longer in that kind of sexy or exciting or fun realm
Right.
of chasing a radar gun. Now it's great, set the floor and just chop and chop and chop and chop away just so you can build that floor. You can continue to elevate your base to make sure
Hmm.
when you do get to the point that you're in now, you can handle doing up, down after up, down after up, down, and then repeating that day in and day out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man. Like it was a grind. Like it was a grind like nothing that I've really experienced before. And I think so much of that was it was a little like lonely when the college guys aren't there. And luckily, I've got a great facility and people that I really enjoy being around. Without that, there's no way I would have been able to get
Mm-hmm.
all the way through this. But like, I mean, there's certainly days in there where I was the only guy in the gym for 2 hours, way overthinking everything I was doing. And MFing that big green pad with all those numbers on it. And yeah, it was tough, man. Like it's like that mental part of the rehab process is so important. And all those everything about that that's difficult, the less people around you to distract yourself from yourself just gets turned up to 10.
Right, that's when you start naming the buckets and the
Yeah.
net has a name, just you're like SpongeBob naming Chip, Penny, and used
Hmm.
napkin as the best friends inside the house.
Yep, for sure. But like that, and that's another piece of why it's so important to have the ability to zoom out because you can at least when in the moment you're looking for 82 and 79 keeps popping up, like that hurts. Like not physically, but like you start wanting to try a little harder, but you got to remember to zoom out and not use today or not train in a way today that what would the word be like costs you tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Like it's sometimes you got to lose a battle to keep fighting in the war, so to speak. And, that was a big thing of trying to know when to do that and when to not. Like there's days that it doesn't, you don't have the juice, but you got to find it. So having a good team around you is so important in that scenario because for me, I tend to be a guy that is kind of push too hard generally, I guess my default.
Bust your
And
ass.
yeah. And so having people that were invested in me as friends and as trainers, which is a big part, like just that generally care about the guys that they're working with and got to watch me for 8 hours a day every day. Like they get to see those patterns kind of manifest themselves. And so having those guys in my corner be like, hey man, you look like shit today. Like just relax, take it home, shut it down. You got your volume in, quit pushing. It's going to be all right. Like you'll feel better tomorrow. So, I mean, yeah, there's just so many pieces to that puzzle and having a good team around you just makes everything so much easier.
I want to call out one thing that I think might get overlooked in that
Mm-hmm.
answer response you just gave. You even mentioned the difficulties for a guy in your position, a professional baseball player. You're not a flamethrower, but you throw in the low 90s. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're comfortably throwing in the low 90s every single time you get on the mound. And you talked about the difficulties of throwing 80 miles per hour. Just because you throw in the 90s, it didn't mean that that's right back where you were thrusted to. You had to go through those incremental steps to get there. And I think that's another piece that can get missed of how difficult it is to get back. Just because you've done it before doesn't mean you're knocking at the door at that same number again. You still have to build up just as you did previously to even get to that number in the first place. Every one of those numbers needs to fall for you to get back to where you were.
Yeah, 100%. There, you can't like that was the biggest thing that our focus was on those incremental steps was not making jumps. We wanted to stay in that like 3% climb for our weekly number was kind of more or less what we were trying to do. So stay in the 1 to 2 miles an hour jump each week. And there's days where stuff synced up and it feels really good. And you're supposed to hit 84 and it comes out as 86. And having the discipline to be like, all right, I mean, we're fine, but like 84 is the number, right? Like being diligent about the small levels of and introducing small levels of stress as opposed to making those big jumps. Like that's what gives the body time to acclimate. And
Hmm.
so that week of throwing 82 is 100% just as important as the week throwing 88 or the first week you're trying to go for 90 because you just don't want to shock the system. That's when stuff locks up. That's when your body starts moving differently, stuff gets tense. Like you need those small, just literally one stair at a time, right? Like that's how we wrote everything out and no skipping steps. Like that's the
Right.
most important thing.
That's how rehab looks like an airplane instead of a helicopter.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, I think that's probably good on the rehab talk. Maybe we can get into the really exciting shift to Puerto Rico. So
Okay.
you're finishing this late stage rehab, you're crushing your live at bats at the facility. I know you said November 18th was the date. So
Mm-hmm.
what did it look like, whether it was calling the crew back in Carolina or getting on the same page with them for you to get back down there?
Yeah, getting here was as much an adventure as the baseball part of being here. Just because in professional baseball across the board, doesn't matter what country it's in, what level it's at. Like my mom always makes jokes about it. It's a man's run organization that like literally organization just is never a priority. So getting little business things like flying a player down sometimes gets lost under the stack of to-dos, I guess, because I was originally supposed to go down like October 21st, and then I didn't hear from the team for like 3 weeks in October. And then by the time I finally did, they were saying, yeah, we wanted you to come down earlier, but the apartment complex that we're working with didn't have rooms ready, so we got to wait until November. It's like, okay, sure, that's totally fine. Would have appreciated hearing that 3 weeks ago, but whatever. And I was like, okay, can we fly down November 5th? Yep. November 5th rolls around, radio silence, flight. Like I was expecting, been half packed for 2 weeks, expecting to be on a plane any day. And then so I get a hold of them on the 6th and they have a flight for me on the 7th. And so I get down there and yeah, like took me an hour to get moved into the apartment because they just didn't have the name on my name on the list. Just weird little organizational issues, but that's literally just baseball. Every team I've ever played for, I'm looking around like, what are we supposed to be doing today?
Yeah,
Because
no matter the country.
right. Yeah, this is not a Puerto Rico specific phenomenon by any means. My mom would always say, like when we were in Little League, she was the team mom that would organize the hotels and stuff. And she's like, you guys just need a team mom, somebody
Yeah,
to be in charge of all those things. I was like, you're probably right, but I don't think they're going to bother to pay somebody's mom.
they should though.
Yeah, they should. I
That's
mean,
that's probably the single most needed organizational position for every
yeah,
single
just
club,
somebody's mom that's invested in making sure everybody's where they're supposed to be.
with
But so
Clementines on the bench.
yeah, 100%. And so I finally got down here in early November, threw a couple of bullpens. My first live BP was just an inning, start slow from the ground up kind of thing. But the biggest thing for me was like those first couple practices, just feeling awesome to be at the field again. Like it'd been so long since I had been in a clubhouse, longest period for me since I got to college. You didn't really have a clubhouse in high school, but you got a locker room. Regardless, like it just being away from that for so long, like I forgot how accustomed just like my general state was to being in that environment. Like I was removed from it for so long. It was just such a relief to be around the team, mess around the locker room, but also like get cleats on, sweat when you're outside under the sun, all that stuff. And so we did that for like that was like we talked about the environment would have been the polar opposite over the summer indoors all alone training in the green pad and then getting back to like really feeling kind of like myself again and in the environment that I'm accustomed to being in, just kind of another one of those stages where a little weight off the shoulders, everything relaxes a bit more, it gets more fun again. and a little bit of a second wind, so to speak, after that 10-week period where I was really struggling with like the burnout, so to speak, of just doing that same thing for 7, 8 months in a row. And then same kind of idea, which the team's been great and patient with me, kind of working with the progression that I've had laid out. And so we did 1 inning live BP, a couple days later, a 2 inning live BP, a couple days later, a 3 inning live BP. Then once we got up to the 3 inning mark, we kind of worked out like a week-long schedule, kind of more back to that college, so to speak. I think right now I'm throwing on Tuesdays and give it 3 or 4 days bullpen, 3 or 4 days back on the mound. So they've worked with me far more than, especially as an independent team. Like they're playing to win every time out there, and I've just really appreciated how patient and how much support they've given me in that aspect.
So are you kind of like the Tuesday starter now? Is that how this
Um,
works? How does that play
I
out?
guess so. The schedule down here, like we have Mondays off, and then we usually have one more off day in that week. So we're playing 5 to 6 times a week. So it doesn't necessarily work out perfectly. That was just kind of the schedule that is just how it worked out. Right now, I'm throwing on Tuesdays. I threw on Tuesday this week. My next start will be on Tuesday, but also in like these independent winter leagues, your rosters, there's so much turnover with affiliate guys coming in and out. Like we've got 3 Japanese guys on the team that are leaving on the 16th. They're all 3 starting pitchers, so like that's going to shake up the rotation, obviously. So this week I'm the Tuesday starter for sure, but couldn't tell you anything more than that.
Yeah, so in a sense you do have a little bit of that high school feel when you don't really know what position you're playing until you show up to the ballpark that day. I know it's a little more advanced than that, but it sounds like you have about a week warning, maybe 2 weeks at most.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't really need more than that. Like that
Right.
lets you, as long as I can lay my week out up to or lay out my days up to the next appearance, that's all. That's all I need. Get that schedule going, and then you can adjust after you throw that next game.
For sure. Yeah, that's also the beauty of being a starter is, hey, you're just one of these days, you're gonna
Yep.
start.
Yeah. No, that's 100% true.
Yeah, feel bad for relievers.
Yeah. No, I've been there, and I don't want to go back.
Yeah. Yeah, callback, I guess, your first episode where you ran us through, you threw in all three possible roles in 1 week when you were in like triple
Yeah.
A or double A. You
No, I
you
think
had to
that was
start, close,
Bowling
and
Green.
did
Yeah.
bridge relief.
Yeah, it was the first day that like the first week we were allowed to go back to backs or make X amount of appearances in a week. And they're like, all right, man, governor's off. Here you go. You're in the game.
It's in the past. We're here now.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the game. Let's
Okay.
let's run through that. I know we started to get into it. What did it feel like waking up on Tuesday morning knowing that the day was finally here?
Awesome. I mean, it was just it felt great. Like it was super exciting. It was one of those you wake up a little earlier, time moves a little slower, just from a little bit of extra anticipation. And yeah, it felt the way that I wanted it to feel, which I think is the most important part. Not overwhelming, but I was excited, looking forward to it. Lights came on, I had the adrenaline rush, and then it was just back to trying to get people out, which was a great feeling. Didn't go super well. A little rusty. The outs will come last, I think. You get your velocity back, and then you get your stuff back, and then precision takes a little bit of time. You can't because you just can't replicate those game speed reps no matter how hard you try. Even in at least for me, like even in the live BPs, like that first live BP, I was pretty amped up for, but everyone after that, like you just get a little more acclimated to it, and your body's more accustomed to moving that speed. And so you just, again, now we're back kind of into the volume game, more fun way to do it. Certainly, yeah, we're building up the floor right now.
Yeah, so you went what, two and a third, two and two
Yeah,
thirds,
yeah, two and a
two
third.
and one.
Yeah,
I'm assuming it was pitch counted because I know you had a couple walks in there.
yeah, we were. It was around there. We were trying to be in the three ups. If we could get a fourth one, great. But three was the goal. Be in the 50 plus ish pitch range to
Right.
continue progressing that way. And no, I don't think it was exceptionally specific to the pitch count. I think we needed to make a bit of a switch to get me out of a jam. but that's part of it. There was
It's baseball.
yeah, it's getting people out. It's it's the difference when the lights come on and they come on for the other team too. Everybody else gets better. We're competitors. Everybody locks in a little more. Mistakes get amplified, and I wasn't super sharp, and that's what happens. Like that's just part of getting back into the game. I was plenty of things to take away that went well. Arm felt great, which was number one focus, was just getting out of there feeling healthy, and like that was a huge relief. Like no matter how much work you do, especially if you're rushing a recovery, so to speak, which I certainly am a little bit. Like the voice in the back of your head's gonna be like, "Hey man, we don't know. Yeah, it's only been 10 months, dude. Like you're kind of out of your mind a little bit, but we'll hold on to time." But it felt great. Woke up the next day and forearm, elbow felt really great. Sore in the places that you want to be sore in, lats, scaps, core, all that good stuff. All the signs are positive feedback from a physical standpoint, which it's a little annoying, I guess, for me. Like I'm just such a competitor in the sense that I just care about getting people out, especially coming from affiliate ball. I've probably talked about the difference in perspective of chasing numbers, trying to put up good. Like I had this conversation in the dugout yesterday. Like affiliate ball is so much more about okay, but how good can that guy be tomorrow? And like for me, like I'm playing today. What's it matter if we're doing tomorrow if I can't get anybody out today? And so having to have that perspective of being okay with sucking, but the body feeling good is tough for me. But I'm doing my best.
Right. I think that's painted perfectly when you talk about it that way. Yeah, it truly is back in the competitive mindset now where I guess normally you feel like you should be back in the competitive mindset fully of just get this guy out in front of me, and you're in this weird mixed space now where every day you wake up feeling good is a win,
Right.
but you're also doing it while trying to get guys out and beat them
Yeah,
out.
it's like a weird survivors, like a low threshold survivor's guilt kind of thing of like, I don't know. Like I don't like feeling that selfish, I guess, in a way of like I gave up 2 runs and well, 2 earned, but like there's an error of 4 runs and 2 1/3. I'm like totally boned the team, but like, oh, my arm feels great. So I get to feel good about that. It's just not the kind of player I want to be, but you gotta take it with a grain of salt, find your silver linings when they're in there and like back in games, but this is still technically the rehab process. I'm still building up innings and getting back into the groove of things, trying to be the pitcher that I'm used to being while just it's getting thrown into the deep end, so to speak, a little bit, going straight from practice to full games. So that's
Right.
just an adjustment period.
Yeah, hit the ground running.
Yeah, so to speak.
Literally. You're on one of those like speed treadmills. It's already set
Sink
to
or
20
swim,
miles per
man.
hour. Just
Yeah.
get on and go.
Yeah, and I mean that part's like super exciting too. I guess we probably didn't talk too much about that, but like I've had that conversation a few times over the summer where one of the things that really helped me get through those dog days where I just was feeling so meh like about going to train was I'm kind of trying to do something pretty exceptional. It was a little exhilarating going into the training for that day of like, well, one, I was towing an intensity line so closely that like today could just be the day that this all just goes to shit. Rolling the dice a little bit, but that risk from an adrenaline standpoint, like it's a little not necessarily addicting, but like that can you got to find your motivation, your edge wherever you can, and for me that was a lot of it. Like every day was just kind of sink or swim. Like I've been treating this whole process as kind of like a last ditch effort. I'm going to come out twice the guy I went in before, or I'm done. That has been my big kind of focus of conviction. Of I don't like doing the mediocre is kind of the way I look at it. I'm not here to just be another guy on a 14-month plan and trying to be back to where I was beforehand. I'm trying to take 3 steps past the guy I was before.
So I want to step back again to day of, even prior to the game.
Okay.
Were you able to re-enter your old game day mindset of like just wake up, make food, get coffee, or whatever it is you
Mm-hmm.
do? Or did it feel different to you? on that day?
No, I was pretty happy with that part as far as the preparation and felt more or less normal. Of course, it felt a little surreal in the moment because it'd been so long since I felt that. Went to the field a little earlier, kind of took a moment and went out to the outfield and processed everything for 5, 10 minutes or so, which I think definitely helped me settle all the nerves and everything that I was experiencing at the time. But as far as that mindset of going out there with focus to execute pitches and all that, like I was pretty happy with where I was able to get to. The execution may not have been there, but the base level mind state was, which goes a long way to moving forward.
Sweet. Well, that's awesome. Now
Yeah.
let's talk about becoming a pitcher again. So
Yeah.
game planning for Tuesday. I know you and I talked a little bit about it via text. What changes do you want to make game plan wise? Because you're a pitcher again. You're not just a
Yeah.
rehab guy. You have to get outs for your team for y'all to win. So what's the plan?
Yeah. So for me, I think sometimes guys are difficult to catch because their stuff is like just so overwhelmingly good and disgusting. But I think I'm a guy that's not easy to catch because honestly, sometimes I think early on in a catcher pitcher relationship, guys just forget that I have pitches,
10 of them?
especially especially from the one, which is unfortunate, that gets forgotten a lot is the cutter because I usually have it be five. And so like guys aren't used to going past four for the changeup. And for me, the cutter's like the pitch that I usually pitch off of. It helps the fastball play up, tunnels the breaking stuff a little bit better. And I have a really good command of it. So like that's usually the pitch that I'm trying to establish and work off of. And I just didn't, I think I threw one or two in my 2.1 innings because with the pitch clock and stuff, it's tough to make a whole lot of in-game adjustments. And at the end of the day, like my focus was committing to the pitch and trying to execute whatever was called. And as much as anything, I needed feedback from the hitters to see their reaction on stuff because I've been pretty happy with how my stuff has looked in my live BPs and stuff like that. But it's a little different than it was pre-op, and so there's still a learning curve that just because TrackMan says it's doing this doesn't always mean that that's how the hitter's going to perceive it. And there's a lot of nuance that I have to kind of discover by just trial and error more than anything. And so the biggest thing for me is execution right now. Is command's okay. I'm around the zone, but it's kind of horseshoes and hand grenades. It's got to be in there or it doesn't matter. So that's my biggest thing is just get more polished. Gotta just get the reps and kind of endure, survive a little bit, I guess is the right word with what I have on that any given day. I keep mentally wanting to go back to like, oh, last year I was locked in, borderline the best I've ever thrown. It's hard not to want to just jump back into that role, but at the same time, like 100 innings into the year at that point, like you're in midseason form, you had plenty of reps. Hopefully, it doesn't take me 100 innings to get back to that point this time, but it might. And I just kind of have to be okay with that. Like we're still, again, sometimes it takes guys 14, 18 months to feel themselves again. Like Ian was talking about, like that first year back, it was just getting the work in, surviving, figuring out how to get people out with whatever you had that day. And so that's right where I am right now. And so just gotta find a way through it. That's part of being a pitcher too. You don't get your A stuff every day. It's a nice challenge in a way too to try and figure out how to get people out with your B or C stuff. That's where you make your money really. And that's kind of always the pitcher I felt like I was, where I felt like I was really good at just having B stuff a ton of times, not really having a lot of days with the C stuff. And so yesterday or Tuesday I had C minus stuff. And so it's a good challenge and it's humbling. Remembering you're human, settling the ego down, all that good stuff. It's all part of the process.
And without getting too far ahead, how many starts or innings are you trying to get to this winter? And what would you deem a success just from an innings logged perspective?
Yeah, my goal is don't miss any starts and get at least one of 5 innings. Our regular season goes until January 6th. that would put, that last start hopefully would be the fourth one. And if I go 2, 3, 4, 5, perfect, we nailed it. And hopefully that would put me in a great position where I'm a bit more polished, refined, and can give us a chance to be an impact guy in the playoffs. Would be kind of the cherry on top, obviously, from like a player's perspective. Like that's really what I want to do is make an impact in the playoffs this year. But from a rehab perspective, if I can make 4+ starts and get built up to 5 innings, I think that'll be a great, that puts me in a great spot going forward.
Yeah, probably good to have two different kind of mindset type goals. The one as your rehab progression.
Yeah.
You are, as you have said multiple times, I've said you're 10 months removed from surgery. And then from a competitive edge because you're playing for a contract as well.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, the rehab part just, it's great. Like it's cool that I'm doing this, but it doesn't matter. Like if I'm out there not getting anybody out, like you said, I'm playing for a job in the summer. So at the end of the day, like after that, got that first one out of the way, we talked about like now we go. Like, yeah, I got to start. I got to get people out. None of this really matters if I'm rolling out there at 88, 91 and getting hit around and stuff. Yeah, like we got to go. We got some work to do, man.
Yeah, it's back to what you said comparing affiliate rehab timelines or
Mm-hmm.
schedules versus non-affiliate. You don't have the luxury of job security, which
Yeah.
sucks, but it's the reality. And yes, you can tell people or anybody can see that you're still on this progression.
Right, but if you
That
just go
isn't
on
that's
baseball
not anybody else's
reference,
fault.
right? Like if you
They
just go on baseball reference, man, all it says is I didn't pitch this year and now I got a 70 ERA. So at the end of the day, like the shit counts. And that's a big part of being an independent guy is like you don't really get to have bad years anymore. And especially like I think that was something that went a long way to me not getting re-signed. And after I got released in 2023 is like my 2022 was pretty dog shit. So like you're kind of as good as your last year. So like as on the independent side, like it matters. It just matters. You're going out there. You're putting your career on the line with statistics or not everything, but like it's a good snapshot, and that's what a lot of teams are. When you got 1,000 indie ball guys that you're looking to fill a couple spots, like that's how they weed you out at the beginning. So put up or shut up, man.
so it's time. I guess it's
Yeah.
relying on the 10 different pitches you throw and getting on the same page with whoever's behind the dish and saying this is the plan. This is what we do.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it's fun. Like you said, having those two different goals helps give you a little bit of mental fallback, like a fallback mentally, I guess. But yeah, the player goal certainly is a priority, and it's hard to keep that quiet when you walk that second guy in a row. And you're like, oh, but my arm feels pretty good. I'm like, well, you look like an asshole. So
But you fielded a bunt, you covered first base,
I
so
did
you
feel the
you
bunt.
are still a baseball
Yeah,
player.
yeah, it's in there. It's coming. Just gotta give it a chance to find its way out.
Yeah, and well, we also talk about maybe not the best results, but what maybe one ball against you was hit above 90 miles per hour.
Yeah, I mean that was the other thing. Like I said, getting feedback from hitters when I was in the zone, it wasn't hit hard. I would have liked a little more swing and miss on the heater, the ones that a lot of pop ups. Like I'm a carry guy, so like I was getting the misses I was looking for. I was able to get inside guys, even though my velo was a little bit down, but still got on the hands. A lot of jam shot. Like most of the hits, the runs that I gave up were scored on a ass out slider off the end of the bat and a fisted four seam up and in on a guy. So like those are the outcomes I'm looking for with those pitches. And that's just baseball, man. Like that's the difference between throwing all those bullpens indoors and like you execute your slider down the way. Like, well, good pitch, but guys on first base. That's just how it goes sometimes.
Well, I appreciate the entire update. I know I could
Yeah.
drill you with questions forever, but we also have buried the lead that you still have school to finish and you are in
Yeah.
exam week.
Yeah, man.
The ever studious
Responsibilities.
Miller Hogan refuses to settle.
Yeah, my mom will get a crack out of that one.
Calling you ever studious.
Yeah, 100%. Been harping on me that for 20 years.
Yeah, too bad St. Louis doesn't have a degree in TrackMan plots or something like that.
Yeah, that would help. I'm sure that's in the books.
Yeah, yeah, I bet you'd have a PhD at this point if that were the
Yeah,
case. But
something like
yeah,
that.
Miller, I appreciate you doing this. Now there's a little bit in me that wants to do this after every single one of your starts, but I'll probably keep that to text for a while.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, maybe we do a recap if after the season, make a playoff run or something. We can
Perfect.
do
Yeah,
something.
that's what we'll need when the Gigantes are playing for the Caribbean series.
There you
That's what
go.
we need.
Yeah, right on.
Yes. Well, hey, I appreciate you hopping on here. Congrats again on getting back on the field. We are so incredibly proud of you. I know I've told you via
Hey, thank
text,
you.
but I I can't express it enough.
You guys have
What,
been a huge part of it, so give
well,
yourself a little
thank
pat on
you.
the back too. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, we'll be following. I know you don't have any social media, so there's nothing to really plug. But if anybody wants to watch Miller's games, they are available for stream on YouTube. So
Yep.
definitely give the Roberto Clemente League a little YouTube search, and you can watch all the games live or recorded.
Yep.
Yep. All right. Well, to everyone out there, thanks for laying back with us.
Yep. Thanks for having me.